Mhm. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on IPM performance for the month of November. Thank you for joining us today on a Monday morning. So, the important topics that we will be covering today are some of the key events that have shaped the market for the month of November. The most important event is the deteriorating AQI scores that we have seen across several states in the country. We will look at how it has impacted the pharma market or the key segments in the pharma market which increase in sales because of these scores. And second, we look at the changing dynamics of the anti-obesity market with the increase in affordability of the innovators. Although the other sections that we will be covering today are the IPM therapy performance, the growth drivers, the top 40 corporates, the top 40 brands, and the key takeaways of how the market has performed for the month of November. So let us move to our first section, the impact on pharma sales trends due to worsening AQI scores. Even before I go to the analysis, I'll just let you know what is it that we have looked into and how we approached this analysis. First is we try to study the seasonal trends in the respiratory category and the key segments within the respiratory category. We focused only on the key contributing therapies for study of the impact, because all the segments within the respiratory category do not contribute much, so only the ones which are very important ones are the ones which we have analyzed. We also looked at what is AQI index and what is its relevance, because we hear a lot about AQI, but I thought let me study that also a bit before discussing the impact of AQI scores on the markets. We also try to understand the average AQI for the month of November across the states within the country. Of course, we have used government sources for the AQI scores within different states. And even when I'm talking about different states, I selected few key cities which matter to the states or have got significant population, because that could directly or indirectly show an impact on the sales of the consumption in the market. We also looked at, just a minute. Yeah. We also looked at the growth rates of the key segments of the respiratory category in each of these states. Now, we had to look at the seasonal pattern, and depending upon the seasonal pattern, is the growth to be considered, not considered, is something which we have studied. But then, as we move ahead, I will also discuss why it is important to look at the growth same against same period last year, instead of looking at growth over the month of October. So this is the trend. What I have done is I have plotted a close to 2 to 3 years trend of the respiratory segment. This is the respiratory category, the topmost blue line. And these are the segments within the respiratory category. Typically, if you see, this is a respiratory category actually is a mix of chronic and acute. The asthma segment is the chronic category where a patient has to be on the asthma products throughout the lifetime, and cough and cold or antihistamines, they are more of acute category to be taken only when you see symptoms or infections. However, even the asthma category has some amount of seasonal factor, because typical winters are the winter is the season where the asthma cases they aggravate and the consumption also increases slightly. So if I were to look at the trends, uh, the respiratory segment shows a seasonal trend wherein, if you see, it picks up from the month of June, it peaks towards December, and after December it starts coming down till the month of June. So this is monsoon plus winter season are the seasons where respiratory category sales increases. Now, within the respiratory categories, there are many subsections. We will not be considering all the subsections for understanding the impact of AQI. We will focus only on the three segments: the anti-asthma, the cough and cold market, and the systemic antihistamines, to see the impact, because these three collectively contribute to almost 90% of the respiratory segment. As I talked about anti-asthma and COPD products, they are more related to breathing problems due to asthma or triggers which lead to breathing problems. And systemic antihistamines are the products which give relief to symptoms or relief from symptoms which may be triggered due to infections or allergy, typically sneezing, runny nose, or watery eyes. have considered this because this is something which you would see when there is a lot of air pollution. Okay. Now, since we have considered only the top three categories, let us look at how these top three categories behave, or how does the sales trend look like in the month of November, and why we should not be considering the sales for the month of October and then compare it with the sales in the month of November. You see, in all the years against October, the sale in the month of November always is more. So the season picks up. So this is true for the anti-asthma products because November, December, Jan would be the winter months. So obviously, as compared to October, the sales is definitely going to be higher in the winter months. Also, if I were to look at uh, cough and cold, it plateaus because these are the months. The rainy season are the months where the cough and cold season increases. There are a lot of cough and cold cases, and syrups, anti-infectives, medications for cough and cold. That sale increases. It plateaus in the winter season. Now, what we have looked at the monthly growth of these three categories against same period last year. Okay. Now, in the last 2 years, in the month of November 23 and November 24, anti-asthma products, the growth was 8%, 5%, whereas the growth is the highest in the month of November 25. So this year, anti-asthma products have shown a relatively higher growth. Similarly, if you look at the pollutants, or systemic antihistamines, which are typically used for allergic reactions or symptoms of allergic reactions, the growth was high last year as well. It is higher this year. It may not be double digit, but it is 9%, which is close to double digit growth. So these top level numbers themselves tell that anti-asthma and COPD products and systemic antihistamines have shown a relatively higher growth in the month of November 25, or in this year as compared to the previous years. Now, before going to the analysis of data, let us look at what is AQI. So, Air Quality Index is a standardized score that translates the concentration of air pollutants, and we get a single number. So, there is a formula to it. But then, what we will focus today is what are the pollutants that are used in the AQI calculation in India. The range of pollutants or the list of pollutants may vary from country to country, but typically for India, it is the concentration of the particulate matter of different sizes and a few gases in the environment. The combination of these, there is a formula with which we arrive, or we arrive at the AQI air quality index score. There is a formula to it, which I will not discuss today, but then collectively the scores of these pollutants is taken into consideration. What we will focus on is what do different AQI scores mean. So a score between 0 to 50 is considered to be good. 51 to 100 yellow, wherein there may be a minor respiratory discomfort. 100 to 200 is moderate, where there may be breathing discomfort to sensitive groups, not the normal people who don't have any asthma conditions. 200 to 300 is poor, where there is discomfort to most people. 300 to 400 is extremely poor, where respiratory illness and serious risk to health may be seen. And the worst is 400 to 500, wherein there is serious health impact even for healthy people. Why it is important to look at these scores is we have been seeing AQI scores more than 400 on a lot of social media in different places. So just talking about AQI index doesn't matter, but actually what matters is the health impact of these AQI scores. Now let us look at a regional level. How are the AQI scores and how does the market sales for different categories look in the light of these AQI scores? Uh, the data which pharma captures is sales from stockists to the retailers at a trade level. What we have tried to do is we have tried to establish the connect between the AQI scores and the sales. Again, the data is directional. There may be different reasons why the connect may not happen. So we will elaborate on that as well. But then yes, to a great extent for majority of the regions, we could find a good connect between the AQI scores and the sales. So let us first go to the North Zone. Now these are the different regions between in the North Zone. If you see, majority of the states in the North Zone, they lie in the red, dark red to purple zone. And Delhi, Haryana is extremely very, very poor. They don't even have a red to purple zone. They are directly in the purple zone. So in majority of the places or majority of the states in north, the AQI index has been very poor. Now in the light of these AQI index, let us look at how do the sales for the different categories look like. Now, to have a proper comparison, we have taken the growth for the month of November as well as growth for the month of November 24 and 23, and also compared it against the growth for the November 25. So, cough and cold market, a majority of the places the growth will be less. As I said, in by winters, the cough and cold market plateaus. It will not show a major growth because these disease conditions they plateau or they are maximum in rainy season. But what matters is the COPD products. If you see in majority of the states in the northern zone, the growth is double digit over here as compared to a single digit in the last year. Also, in majority of the places, the growth of the systemic antihistamines is also double digit. What came out peculiar in Delhi and Haryana is the growth over here is 9%, and for systemic antihistamines it is minus 23%. As I said, data is directional. What I would like to also point out that last year in Delhi, the growth was higher. It was 17%. And today, when I'm talking about a growth of 9%, it is just 1% below a double digit growth. So, relatively, the growth is still relatively higher. And if this was the growth last year, it means that Delhi also faced probably more severe pollution problems last year as well. Systemic antihistamines are typically the products which are used to control the symptoms of allergy. There was lot there I mean there was government notification given for staying at home, using masks, work from home. That may have been one of the reasons why the systemic antihistamine sales would have been lower. Also, this is a type category of products which can be sold online as well. Lot of OTC component which may not be getting captured in our data point, but this may be one of the reasons why the sale over here is negative. Other places, if you see, majority of the places, high AQI index is directly correlating with high sales of the anti-asthma products and the systemic antihistamines. Coming to the next zone, we will go to the East zone. East zone, if you see, barring Bihar and Jharkhand, in many of the places, the AQI index is relatively better. It's not good, but it is relatively better than what it was in North zone. It is in Bihar and Jharkhand where it is extremely poor. Now, this is also directly correlating with the uh, asthma and COPD product sales of Bihar and Jharkhand, and as well as the systemic antihistamines. Okay, before I go to Bihar and Jharkhand, we also see that you will find certain states like UP Northwest, Uttarakhand, UP West Central, where for 2 consecutive years the growth for systemic antihistamines has been double digit. So in the presentation, we will also track certain states where the growth has been double digit or higher for consecutive years. Okay. Now let us go to East Zone. Now East Zone, if you see, Bihar and Jharkhand, the growth of anti-asthma and COPD products is double digit this year. Even last year it was not less, it was 6% growth. So it's not that the base was too small last year. Also, if you see in this 2 consecutive years for Bihar and Jharkhand for systemic antihistamines, the growth has been double digit and not just 12%, 20%, it is 25% and 31%, which talks about a significantly higher growth. Also, when I'm arranging the states, all the states in a zone have been arranged in the descending order of value. So these states in terms of absolute value are also bigger states. Coming to the west zone, in west zone, if you see, it is in the range of orange to dark red. Nowhere we are in the good zone, but then Mumbai falls in the orange to dark red zone. It is Vidarbha and interior Maharashtra where the conditions are unhealthy or very poor. Now these are also the places where uh, winters are extreme. It's like in Mumbai, you really don't have a winter season, but in Vidarbha and interior Maharashtra, it is dry and extreme winters. And also, these places are not close to the sea. Probably some amount of air pollution of Mumbai gets absorbed in the sea, whereas interiors of Maharashtra don't have this advantage. If I were to look at the sales, MP and Chhattisgarh, this state stands out to be a state where the anti-asthma and COPD products are double digit for the last 3 years. Also, the systemic antihistamines growth is also double digit and very high growth in the last 2 years. So these are typically states where pollution or winter related problem seems to be a little on a higher side every year, at least for the last 3 years. Similarly, if I were to look at Mumbai this year, in fact, it's in the last 2 weeks or last 2 to 3 weeks that we started reading news about AQI index of Mumbai has almost touched 400. So this sales of your anti-asthma and COPD products also seems to have increased in the month of November. Last zone that we come out is the south zone, which we feel that is a relatively the AQI index is relatively better in majority of the states in south. I don't say that everywhere it is good, but it is relatively better. And if I were to look at the sales also, the sales of anti-asthma products, the growth is relatively less in AP, Karnataka, Kerala. In Tamil Nadu, both Northeast and Puducherry as well as Southwest Tamil Nadu, in both the places, the sale is double digit. While the AQI index is not very poor in majority in both these places, what we realize it probably last year there was a degrowth. There may be a normalization of sale that may have lead to this trigger. Oh, this year, for these most of these states, systemic antihistamine sales seems to be stable. But then, last 2 years, in the month of November 23 and 24, the sales for systemic antihistamines in majority of the states in the south was on a relatively higher side. So this was a brief analysis on how the AQI index of the different states have performed. It is not necessarily AQI index for that one particular day. It's an average AQI index. So it is possible that in some days the AQI index may have gone towards light yellow or green, or in some days it may have gone to dark purple. But on an average, this is the AQI of the states, and we have tried to do it for some of the major states which contribute to the market and population of that state. To summarize, the air quality decline directly drives the respiratory market. The worsening of the AQI indices is now clearly reflected in increased consumption across core respiratory therapy categories, signaling a strong environment linked disease burden. In fact, we have also read many of the small children in North Zone had to be hospitalized due to breathing problems. Emerging hotspots show alarming growth trends. Multiple regions are recording double digit month on month growth in November, indicating that winter triggered ailments are no longer a seasonal fluctuation, but air pollution in winter months make it an escalating public health trigger. And this is something which collectively as a nation is a concern for us. Next, we go to our topic of changing dynamics of the anti-obesity market with increase in affordability of innovators. So over here also, instead of just focusing on how the market has behaved or how the market trends are, we try to do a little more analysis of obesity, its contribution to the different states, the prevalence, and why the market may be behaving the way it is behaving. So first we look at obesity in India, fast tracking of concerns and market trends related to obesity, regional focus of GLP-1 agonist market versus the population potential, pricing trends and impacts of increase in affordability. Now that there has been a price reduction by some innovators, let us see how the market is also reacting to this price reduction by innovators. Obesity in India. So, there are different definitions for obesity. It may be a BMI in the range of greater than or equal to 25 or greater than or equal to 30 is somewhere termed as obese, and other some places it is also looked at central or abdominal obesity, which is very common in South Asians or in India because we have higher carb consumption. Prevalence of obesity in India is around 40% with higher proportions in the urban population. While we talk about an average range of 40%, what we try to do is we try to look at the obesity prevalence in some of the mega metros of the country. So, in fact, we see a clear divide. mega metros like Chennai, Delhi, Calcutta, Bangalore, they have a relatively higher prevalence range of obesity, whereas Mumbai, Hyderabad, Pune, Ahmedabad, they have a relatively lower prevalence. Again, I'm talking about a relative number because anything above 40 or 40% obesity prevalence itself is a very alarming number. So, in that scenario, top three cities, Chennai, Delhi, Calcutta, and Bangalore, they have a relatively higher proportion. Now, why we had to look at this scenario is we wanted to study the dependence of the GLP-1 agonist market on the different states and cities, and is it in line with the prevalence of the condition and the population. So what we have done is, here I have not taken all the states, I have taken some of the major states. So the first column talks about the population contribution. So if India's population is 1.4 billion, this is the Uttar Pradesh contributes to almost 70% of that, 17% of that population. Whereas for the GLP-1 agonist sales, it contributes to 8%. Maharashtra plus Mumbai collectively contributes to close to 9% of the population of the country. But for GLP-1 agonist sales, it's around 24%. Bihar, Jharkhand, 12% of the population, only 1% of the sales. Delhi, Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh, Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal. These have collectively taken as one region because in our audit we show it as one region. They contribute to almost 7% of the sales, but 7% of the population, but close to 16% of the sales, majority of which may be coming from Delhi. So the dependence of GLP-1 agonist market on states within the country does not seem to be in line with the population distribution. Why this may be happening, maybe affordability and awareness of the availability of solutions may be one of the reason why this may be happening. Over here, Mumbai, majority of the people are aware. Delhi, most of the people may be aware. So whichever states have got metros or mega metros, there the contribution may be on a higher side. But then on lower tier cities, while obesity, may be a problem, but then one affordability may be an issue, and then a desire to change may be on a relatively lower side. It's maybe, I'm not saying that will be the situation, because in the last 4 years or 3 years, when Ribelsis was launched, I'm sure when MNCs launch a product in the market, they do a lot of market priming. They do a lot of activity with the doctors, wherein the doctors educate the people to, educate the people about the need to take medication to manage their healthcare issues. So, good amount of work may have been done, but then the trigger to change comes little faster in the metros or mega metros because it's a lifestyle condition which is more prominent in the urban areas. Also, what we try to look at is how has the anti-obesity market or the GLP-1 agonist market evolved in the last 5 years. From 87 crores, the market is close to 1000 crores today. So if you see, the anti-obesity market has grown almost tenfold in the last 5 years. Also, if you see, look at the growth. Now, this is the MAT November growth where the market has almost doubled. It has grown by 100%. But not necessarily all the regions or all the cities show that type of growth. Mumbai as a city has grown by almost 300%, whereas there will be other places where the growth is just double digit. So depending upon the mindset of the people, the affordability of the people, also the seriousness or the gravity of the situation that is there in the mindset of the people, the growth will vary. Now, what we have seen is in the last month, in the month of November, somewhere mid-November, we had a major price reduction. So we have looked at, because of this price reduction, what has been the impact on the market itself. So if you see, now here what I have done is Wegovy comes in the prefilled syringe format, whereas Mounjaro comes as vials as well as prefilled syringe. Now one prefilled syringe is equal to 4 vials, so 4 doses. So I've converted one prefilled syringe into 4 vials, so we have a proper like-to-like comparison. So if I were to look at the growth is almost 1.7 times. So the consumption of Wegovy has actually increased significantly after the price reduction has happened. And again, this is just a 15 days impact because this happened somewhere in the month of mid-November. Had it happened little early, in the beginning of the month of November, probably this 1.7 would have been 2.1 or something. We will have to wait and watch and look at, how the situation also evolves over a period of time. Now, when I'm talking about price reduction, what is the extent to which the price reduction has happened? So over here, I have just taken the sales for October month and November month, and this is the multiplier of November over October. This is the MRP per unit, actual MRP per unit, and this is MRP per dose. So here I have converted that, one vial into four doses. So this is the cost of one pre-filled syringe, which is four doses. If I divide it by four, I get the cost of each dose. So earlier for Wegovy, the per dose costing ranged from 4,000 rupees to close to 6,000 rupees, whereas now it has become quite economical from 2,700 rupees to 4,000 rupees. While for Monjaro, the pricing remains the same, it has not changed significantly. What will be interesting is over a period of time, how will this price reduction impact the acceptance or sales of both the products over a period of time? If you remember in the last presentation, we had talked about Mounjaro almost 10 times the sale of Wegovy. So in that vials market, Mounjaro's sale was close to 90% and Wegovy was close to 10%. Now with this 15 days impact, we have seen that Wegovy has managed to gain close to 5% market share. While Mounjaro continues to stay a major player, but then with price reduction, Wegovy seems to be making a little stronger indent in the consumption. What needs to be watched is in the month of December, does this market share move from 14% to 20%? So that gives us a fair idea of how affordability is also pushing consumption of the innovator drugs. We also try to study the inventory levels of both the products. If you see, Mounjaro maintains a strong inventory of close to 30 to 40 days. Wegovy maintains a strong inventory of 30 to 37 days. So probably higher inventory levels clubbed with affordability would ensure availability of affordable solution in majority of the states, probably may lead to an increased consumption. However, we have also seen for Monjaro, the inventory levels have been quite lean at an overall level. In fact, for major cities, the inventories would be even lesser. This is all India inventory level. So net to summarize this section, there is a urban market imbalance. Although obesity is more prevalent in urban India, anti-obesity product sales are disproportionately concentrated in few states, indicating market skew and underpenetration in high-need regions. High growth but uneven adoption. The growth rate is good. Okay. The GLP-1 agonist category is showing a strong MAT and 5-year CAGR, but uptake varies significantly by geography, reflecting differences in awareness, affordability, and access. Affordability drives demand. A simple reduction in MRP led to a 70% surge in Wegovy consumption, demonstrating that price remains the single strongest accelerator for category expansion in India. Upcoming generics will reshape the pricing dynamics, with multiple Indian companies preparing generic semaglutide launches post 2026. Pricing strategies may need recalibration. So initially, Indian companies had thought of entering the market with a certain price, but Wegovy reducing the price may actually have to make them go back to the drawing board, because innovators who balance affordability with brand equity are positioned to lead. Because an innovator product at a slightly higher price would be my first choice in light of a branded generic. Large untapped market opportunity. Despite rising demand, India's obesity market remains significantly underdeveloped, signaling major growth headroom for both innovators and upcoming generic entrants. This was about the changing dynamics of the anti-obesity market. Now we move to our next section, wherein we look at the IPM therapy performance. So if you look at the IPM therapy performance, the IPM has grown at a value of close to 9%. Among the top therapies, it is the cardiac, the anti-diabetic, the neuro-CNS, and the gynecological categories, which have shown us very robust double-digit growth. And it's not just a robust double-digit value growth, but if you look at the unit growth also has been strong and positive for these top categories. As far as the growth drivers are concerned, these are the growth drivers. This is the new introduction, price, as well as volume. All the three growth levers of the market seem to be quite positive. And among the growth levers for the month of November, it is the cardiac therapy and the neuro CNS therapy, which have a relatively stronger volume driven growth. All other therapies you will see in certain places like gastro, nutritional, respi, they have shown a negative volume growth, but then it is the cardiac and the neurotherapy which have pulled up the volume growth of the overall IPM. Coming to the top 40 corporates, while the market has grown by 9.1%, Sun, Cipla, Intas, Torrent, Lupin, Zydus, DRL, McLeods, Glenmark, and USV. These are the companies among the top 20 players which have shown a robust double digit value growth for the month of November. And amongst the next players, players between 21 to 40, it is Laranon, Ajanta, Corona, and Nutricia, which have shown a good double digit value growth. Coming to the top 40 brands, Augmentin and Glycomed GP, they continue to stay at number 1 and number 2 position at a MAT level. However, for the month, Monjaro has become the number 1 brand for the month of November, and it has managed to come among the top 20 brands at a MAT level. Other brands besides Augmentin, other brands like Thyronorm, Duolin, Telma, Silacar, they also show a very robust double-digit value as well as unit growth. Amongst the next set of brands between 21 to 40, brands like Levipil, Lantus, Brilinta, Ditor, and T-Bact have shown a robust double-digit value as well as unit growth. So that was all about IPM in general, how the IPM has performed. So it has shown a value growth of 9.1% for the month of November, with majority of the top players showing a very good double-digit positive growth. All the three growth levers stay positive for the IPM for the month of November. Majority of the top players show encouraging value growth. Augmentin and Glycomed GP continue to retain their leadership position at a MAT level. However, for the month of November, Monjaro stands at number 1 position and number 20 position for the month of November. That was all about IPM performance for the month along with certain key events. I thank you so much for joining us today and have a nice week ahead.